Book week is happening in August, and it's just an excuse to dress up, but I like an excuse to dress up, and I want to be organized this year and actually make a costume rather than get what I already have. This year I want to go as Mary Shelley because I kind of want to highlight historical female authors, especially ones that have been innovative to the literature world. I just want to get practice making my Regency dresses, so I'm going to do that. And while I do that, I'm going to be reviewing Sanditon because they're both Regency. I'm making a Regency dress. Might as well review a Regency era thing. And it gives me something to do. And it gives you something to listen to. Okay, so in Sanditon, the basic plot is Charlotte Haywood comes to the rescue of a Mr. and Mrs. Parker, and then they invite her to Sanditon, which is their sort of beachside resort thing. It's basically a different version of Bath, and then stuff ensues, and then Charlotte meets Sidney Parker, who is Mr. Parker's brother. And then according to the book, that's where it ends, because this was Jane Austen's unfinished novel. So with the series, they took creative liberty, and yeah, fun. Now, I'm going to be referencing Anne with an E a lot. If you haven't seen Anne with an E, you really should, because it's a really, really, really good show. And it got cancelled for some stupid reason. And I'm referencing it a lot because they done it better. Now, in Sanditon, the series, hang on, what happens? I don't really remember what happens. Well, there's a whole lot of all these little subplots happening and scheming and all this sort of stuff that doesn't really sound very Jane Austen. So we have the character, I keep getting everyone's names. We've got, so there's Lady Denham, and she's kind of the old rich lady who everybody wants her money because she's old and rich and she's gonna die soon. So, and then there's Clara and she's kind of just hanging out with Lady Denham just to be a companion, and it's kind of alluded to. She's got like some dark past and stuff. In a Jane Austen novel, it'll be hinted at, but not outright said. And then there are, I think they're her nephew and niece, Lady Denham's. Well, they got the last names. I'm assuming they're those things. So we got Edward Denham and Esther Denham, and those two are step siblings. And Edward Denham's not nice, and he's kind of basically gaslighting Esther. It's nasty. Like, really, you just sort of go, why is that necessary? Ugh. By the way, I'm following Tamara Tours. I hope I'm saying her name right. I'm following her tutorial for this, and I'm hoping it works. Okay, now Sanditon is, I haven't actually read the book, so I can't really have my insight. Usually I try and read a book before I see the screen adaptation, but I have read every Jane Austen book, and I've seen a few adaptations, so I can kind of get the feel of the sense, the Austen sense-ness thing. And usually, Jane Austen shows are kind of, Austen's kind of a satirical look at society and how ridiculous some of the things are. So it's meant to be light-hearted and fun and sort of a way to escape in a way, Whereas Sanditon, this show, they kind of went dark and gritty. I don't know why everyone has to go dark and gritty with things, but you know, dark and gritty does not suit Austen. It works for Charles Dickens, but not for Austen. It's just weird. I mean, they could have done it in a way that would have worked without having to go dark and gritty. I think because it's an unfinished novel, they felt they could take more creative liberties with it. But it just didn't work. Didn't work. In my personal opinion, okay? Okay, I'm actually gonna go in with pinking shears now because I don't know why I didn't do it before. Now I'm gonna say this. Now Charlotte Haywood, I'm gonna call her Charl because I can. Like I hate the term. Like I hate that it's used a lot, and I hate to use it, but she was a Mary Sue. I'm sorry to say it, but she was. So this show was kind of a case where every other character except the main characters were interesting. And if there's a show and I don't like the main characters, then I'm not really going to be interested in the show. Now, I know Mary Sue is just like a term that some people just like to throw around, but basically it's where, you know, the main character is just there to be a plot device, and she definitely was. Oh my gosh. There was seriously no personality to her. It's just whatever the plot needed so they can get her to a place. And they just throw in random interests of hers, which kind of annoyed me. I really hate that they have throwaway interests with characters, especially if they're musical instruments. It's like, oh, by the way, they play this instrument. Now, if you know musicians, you know they play the instrument. It's basically their whole entire life. You know, that's the first thing you know about them. Like, this is so-and-so. By the way, they play an instrument. Like, that's the first thing you know about them. Whereas, like, Charles is just, like, throwaway interest, and it really, really annoyed me. I'm sure it annoyed other people as well. Because somehow, I didn't know she had accounting skills. Like, I think they just need to get her into a room somehow. It's bit dumb. You can tell I wasn't paying attention much with this show, but I only knew about the accounting thing because I was reading a review of every episode on Frotflix. You should check out frotflix.com. Really good, because they're all about historical costumes, and they're also very sassy about it. So, and they did not like this show, and you can kind of tell why. But Anyhoos, Charles was into accounting, and that just seems like the randomest thing. They had the potential to actually do something with her because she's the oldest of 11 kids. And, you know, they could have done something with that. You know, she could have had skills. She could have had to, like, her mum was probably busy, so Charles could have helped out her mom with her 10 other siblings. So she could have had household skills, and maybe she kind of had to also be a teacher to her siblings. And that's how she knows to read and write and stuff. And, you know, maybe she had one sibling who was really into geography. And maybe another sibling was really into something else. So they could have done something with that, but they didn't. Instead, the writers just threw in whatever the plot needed. And also they tried to make her not like the other girls, which is really dumb. I think, not quite, I don't think they went as far, but they definitely tried to make her different. I mean, I think they did it with the main two characters. They tried to make them more relatable to the audience, so they modernized them, and it didn't work. I mean, they even modernize them in their clothing sense. I mean, if you go on frockflix.com, I will link it. You can see that they definitely, costume-wise, made them more modern, but it backfired and just made the two main characters stand out like a sore thumb. I mean, if you know historical stuff, if you know your Regency era, you know that ladies had their hair pinned back, but because it was the way. This is the way. And in Sanditon, Charles does not have her hair done up at all. She's got a side part. It didn't work. And Sanditon is actually a beachside resort, so here she is going to the beach, and her hair is just everywhere. And you're like, well, maybe if you pinned your hair back, you wouldn't have that problem. But no. I mean, when she does have her hair pinned up, it looks nice, but the rest of the time it's just kind of making her stand out and really stand out in the wrong way. There was off-screen drama, so I got everything done. I was trying to hem everything, and I decided to try out this new sewing foot, which is supposed to hem everything. But I don't know why I decided to use it then, but it didn't work, and everything was going wrong, and I had to kind of take a break. I needed to unstitch it. I had to unstitch the whole thing, and I'm fine now. I just had to take a break, step away from something, and then come back to it, and then you'll be fine. But I got everything done. Actually, my white one's done, kind of. I just don't want to work on that one anymore, so I'm gonna pop the elastic in, which is the easiest part. So my advice is, practice with new sewing feet before you try them on a project. Otherwise, everything's gonna... There will be tears. Alright, where was I? So, Anne, with an E. Like, your first impression of her is that she's a very annoying, melodramatic teenager who won't shut up. But then, once you get to know her, you kind of realize that there is more to her. She has not had the best upbringing. She was orphaned pretty young, and she's desperate to be part of a family. She was basically sold to be a maid, and she wants to be part of a family, and so she's kind of trying to do her best she's trying to make a good first impression, but that she gets too over enthusiastic and just can't help herself. You realize she's very curious as a person, and she just wants to know everything, which is why she can't shut up. She just keeps asking questions. She just wants to know everything. And you realize that she's kind of actually smart, because she's kind of had to help out raise kids and stuff, and so she had her basic household skills, things like that. And then you kind of her character just grows on you, and that's why I liked her so much. Whereas Charles has kind of nothing. There is nothing with her. She's just there. I mean, her likes and dislikes just don't really make any sense. It's just basically whatever the plot entails. There's one where there's a character which was created for the show called Arthur Stringer, and his character's way more interesting. I don't know why the show just wasn't about him, because he's a middle class person, and his father's a foreman. A foreman, and so he's following the family trade as being a foreman, and he has ambitions to be an architect. So he kind of wants to break through his social class. And yeah, he's very interesting. And for some reason, Charles is also an architect expert, which makes no sense because there was never any hint of it throughout. But, you know, it's kind of hinted at that she kind of liked him, but it seemed like the only way they could have a discussion was if she also knew about architecture. Now, I'm not really big on dating, but if I liked a guy and they were interested in something, if they were absolutely passionate about something, I'd be going, well, I'd like you, can you tell me about this thing you're really interested in? Because I kind of like you and I want to get to know you, and the best way is to know you through your subject of interest, because, you know, that's what you do. They could have gone in that route, but they didn't. It was just, nope. She has to be on the same level as him, and did not work. And the accounting thing, I only found out because I was reading about it on frockflix.com, which you should check out. And I did not know this until I read about it. It's like, what? She's into accounting? What? I think it's just they need to get her into a room. And it didn't... They couldn't think of a reason to get her in the room. And that just made no sense. Like, why? Like, you know, they had the potential, but they didn't. It was just very, very, very much wasted. And that's why her character is just very, very bland and boring, and they also try to make her, you know, she's very smart and stuff, but also try to make her a bit clumsy and stuff, and it didn't work as well, because there's one scene where she's at some bowl. By the way, she had the dress she wore in that scene. It was actually really nice, and I kind of have, you know, dreams to make a Belle-inspired outfit from every historical era, and if I was going to do a yellow dress in the Regency era, I'd base it off that. But anywho, she's at this thing, and she's like, you know, you think she's like a super confident person, but then in this scene she's all flustered and clumsy, like, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't know. And she's going on about something and rambling on. It's like, oh, I'm so sorry. It's just didn't work. Like, there's just no consistency in her character. Now, Sid, that's what I call him. He's supposed to be the hero of the show. Didn't work because I think they tried to make him too badass and it didn't work. According to the book, I need to read the book, but in the book it's like the book finishes just as they're introducing Sid, so they kind of had to make up something, and they tried to make him a bit, you know, typical Austen hero, but it didn't work because, you know, he was drinking, he was fighting and stuff, and he had facial hair, and it wasn't working. Yeah, they tried to, I don't know. One of my favorite tropes is the tough guy with a heart of gold, especially when he ends up adopting a child with extraordinary powers, and I think they tried to go in that way, but it didn't work. He just, in my eyes, he just ended up an irredeemable bad boy who gets redeemed somehow, and that just really annoys me, because also, it seemed like he just had no basic personality as well. Because I think they were just trying to focus too much on making him badass and not really giving him any kind of personality. Like, he was just constantly being grumpy the whole time. I mean, I do like a grumpy guy, but he was just grumpy for no reason. He was just like, ugh. I think they could have, I think there were hints, you know, I think they were trying to, Sid was trying to help his older brother out, and they could have gone with that way. Like, so, you know, like he's trying to charm some investors. And, you know, like the investors maybe like are really into drinking and stuff, and they could have gone with that angle, but they didn't. So he's kind of like, oh, I have to charm these investors, but they all like drinking and stuff, which I'm not really into, and they had potential for stuff, and it just didn't work. Also, he's like, there's one character, what's her name? Georgiana Lamb. She was another interesting side character, and they just didn't do anything with her. She's half black, but she's an heiress, so she's like, she is not of age yet, so she hasn't got her money yet. So, and Sid is her guardian, and I just didn't see anything. I think they tried to do something there where he's a bit grumpy and protective of her because she's vulnerable in all sense of the words, and it wasn't working. It wasn't working. I'm almost done, and my battery is dying. If you want to talk about everything going wrong, everything's going wrong. So yeah, I had dinner, and then there were 3 episodes of Travelland and I watched it because Richard Ayoade's the best. But it's done. Yay, I got them done, and it's cold, so it just got really big. It wasn't that hard to make. I just, don't try out new toys on difficult projects, because then you'll start crying. So, all in all, I think Sanditon just, if it was not a Jane Austen adaptation, it probably would have worked. But because it has the name to it, you kind of expect a lot from it. You expect it to be a lovely, light-hearted thing. And you expect there to be a happy ending, because that's just about every Jane Austen story has the happy ending. But this just wasn't. If it was just a random Regency era drama, would have worked, but it didn't, and the main characters were boring. I did not like them. And if the main character is not interesting, I'm going to drift off really easily. I mean, it started off interestingly because one of the first scenes was they go to the beach, and you could see the difference between the men and the women. Like, the women had to get into like some full costume to go in this weird contraption to get to the beach, whereas the men could just walk on up. I mean, that could have been interesting. They could have just shown the difference between the men and the women, but they didn't. And that's kind of what the show was. They had interesting ideas, but they just didn't go with them. They instead tried to go dark and edgy, and didn't work. Dark and edgy does not work for Austen. No. So, I mean, if you want to watch it, you totally can, but the Colin Firth Pride and Prejudice exists, so watch that instead. So it's been about a week later, and I did finish it. I did finish The Other White Dress. It's here. And this is the thing I made. And then I made another one. It's this one. And I made this. I'm gonna have to stop for a bit because I keep making them. It's fun. I have a bit of obsession. So, Sanditon, the way Sanditon ended, it was kind of on a, depending on how you view it, it would be a sad ending or sequel bait. Now, I kind of preferred the sad ending because I wasn't that interested and I didn't really want to know what was going to happen, but, apparently there are fans of the show, and they're kind of hoping for season 2, but they're trying to, hoping other networks would go for it, and, if there was a season 2, I might watch it, just because I'm curious to find out what happened, but, yeah, that's it.